Wherever you are on your road to retirement, we're here to help you stay on course. Welcome to Mason Street Retirement Insights, the show dedicated to helping you plan your financial future.
What is your biggest concern? People are very focused on the amount of money that they have saved, but it's really about the income that we generate. Income is what's going to drive lifestyle. And so the income strategies that we utilize are what's key.
And now, here's your host, Sean Mason.
And I am Casey Hudson. I'm alongside Sean every week here on the show, asking for his ideas on what you can be working on as you are getting closer to that retirement goal line. We know here in Fresno that you've worked hard, you've saved hard, and now Sean is here to help you turn those savings into a reliable retirement paycheck. Sean, my friend, how are we doing this weekend? Great to see you.
Casey, I'm doing good. It's good to be here with you. You know, I love hanging out with the community. So excited about the topics that we're going to talk about today, that's for sure.
I am too. A great show is ahead of us because we're going to look at how to stay in control of your retirement future, from managing taxes on your savings to maybe preparing for workplace changes that could impact your plans to retire on your terms. Some fun conversations, some good lessons lie ahead for us. So we want you to settle in, get comfy, and go ahead, take our phone number down too. Keep this handy for the show. Save this in your phone, whatever you got to do. It's just very important that you have this number down, 559-847-0039. 559-847-0039. That's how you can reach us today. And we highly suggest that you do, because Sean has a few select spots set aside on his calendar exclusively for our radio listeners for your very own Mason Street Retirement Blueprint. Now, Sean, some people who maybe they've never met with a financial advisor before, they might hear, sit down for a retirement blueprint, and think, that sounds really scary. It sounds too much. It sounds intimidating. They're afraid they might be judged. So please talk us through the Mason Street process a little bit. What sets it apart, and why is it so important that retirees and future retirees set up some time to meet with you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, you know, it really is, you got to get down into what you're really looking to accomplish in retirement. What do you want that lifestyle to look like? What are those bucket lists that you have? What are the relationships that you want to enhance? The causes that you want to support? What are your hobbies? You know, you start getting all that in line, and then you got to start thinking about, you know, the resources that you have. How are you going to fund that lifestyle? And so having all that come together is really important, and having the picture, the vision of how all that comes together. You know, so often people come into the office and they kind of start talking about, they think they've got it. It seems like it's going to work out, but most of us, we're looking for more certainty than that. And when you can put it all together in one place, your entire financial world in one place, understand how that's going to fund your lifestyle, there's a certain feeling that you get. You just live different when you actually know, and you know the reason why it's going to work out the way expected. So when you first come in, we're going to talk about all the different elements that we need to be identifying that are important. You know, what does your income sources look like? Are you working with Social Security, pensions, rental income, dividends from stocks? We're going to take a look at, you know, what that looks like. And then we're going to talk about the tax, because, you know, most of us have that goal of getting as many spendable dollars out of our resources as possible, and taxes are going to be the biggest erosion factor on that goal. So we got to understand taxes. We got to understand what the opportunities are to mitigate taxes and pay as little as possible, not just this year, not just in the current year, not in just one individual year, but over our entire lifetime. We got to be able to mitigate taxes. What kind of risk are you willing to take? You know, there's a couple different kinds of risk. Risk is pragmatic. You know, I got to make sure that I never have to take money out of an account that's gone down. But then on the other side, I got to be able to sleep at night. And so I really got to get true with how far can I watch my accounts go down and still sleep at night. That risk is really important. And then, you know, what are your desires to leave money to kids or a cause What does that look like? We're going to walk through all those different areas so that you can start to have a picture. We want to paint a picture so that you can visualize what you want retirement to look like and how your resources can help fund that.
That number to do it again, it's 559-847-0039. And we want you to remember, too, this is a completely complimentary opportunity where you can meet directly with Sean, whether you do that on the phone, whether you get on a Zoom, whether you come in person. Sean's local here in Fresno, but it's truly whatever you're comfortable with for this first meeting. But you can ask Sean your big retirement questions and really get that 30,000-foot view of where you stand and what adjustments might make sense for you as you head towards retirement. So 559-847-0039. That's what you need to dial. We've got Mason Street teammates standing by right now at the office. They've got Sean's calendar pulled up. They're ready to get you all set up for your very own Mason Street retirement blueprint. So one more time, 559-847-0039, or you can get connected with us online as well. The website is masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll click the contact button up top, share a little bit of info with us, and then we'll have a Mason Street teammate reach out directly to you to get you started. All right, let's dive in, Sean, because I mentioned I want to talk today about managing taxes. And it's because I saw an article this week I wanted to talk to you about. It had the headline, I'm 80 and my RMD is $300,000. What the heck am I supposed to do about my huge tax bill? Now, this is another example of what can happen if you're very successful with your 401k and your IRAs. The person that wrote this article has just over $6 million in an IRA. But Sean, isn't this why we talk about an IRA to Roth conversion? Can you talk to us about this scenario and what your thoughts are on it, what your opinion is?
Yeah, it really is that, most of us don't understand what the effect of and the consequences of RMDs or required minimum distribution. RMDs are when the government decides that they want their money. You partnered with the government when you decided to start funding your 401k, your IRA, your pre-tax accounts. You owed taxes on those dollars, but they allowed you to put their portion into your account. So you really built that account with your partner, the government, and eventually they want their share. The only way for them to get their share is for you to start pulling money out of those accounts and pay taxes on them. So they're going to force you to do that. Some of us, it's going to be age 73. Others, it's going to be age 75. Just depends on the birthday, but you got to really plan for this. Casey, that our goal is really to control tax brackets. When it comes to tax strategy, all we're trying to do is control our tax brackets with what we have available to us. Mm-hmm. And once RMDs or required minimum distributions start kicking in, we all of a sudden have a loss of control. So we've got to plan that out.
So for listeners who may not know, Sean, can you explain exactly why RMDs become such a tax issue later on in retirement?
Yeah, because imagine that you've been pulling out of your account the right amount. You've been pulling out of your IRA the right amount when you're trying to supplement your Social Security. Maybe you've got some rental income. Maybe you have a pension or a small pension. You've got dividends. And in tax planning, we want to understand how much we should be pulling out of that IRA. And all of a sudden, you turn 73 or you turn 75 years old, and now you're required to take a specific amount out. Those RMDs actually cause a tax chain of events. And so all of a sudden, you're forced to take more money out of that account than you had planned on. Social Security taxes are dependent on your income. And when you pull more money than you expected out of your IRA, all of a sudden your income goes up, which means that there's a high potential that more of your Social Security is going to get taxed. Mm-hmm. You also recognize that your Medicare premiums are dependent on your income. And so when RMDs kick in, now all of a sudden your income goes up. Now all of a sudden, maybe more of your Social Security ends up on the tax return, which again increases your income. That can start to now put you into the higher tiers, and now Medicare premiums go up.
So I'm wondering how you determine when you're meeting with a client how much somebody should convert without creating a new tax problem for them? Are there certain years for somebody where Roth conversions tend to make more sense than others, or is there a certain client where a Roth conversion makes more sense than a different client?
Yeah. So often when I'm having the tax discussion, and by the way, I'm having this discussion with tax professionals, CPAs. Not necessarily are CPAs always recognizing the big picture. I urge people to be careful about relying solely on their tax professional to determine Roth conversions, because often our tax professional is really highly focused on saving us as many dollars this year as possible in taxes. And, when I ask people what's most important to you, it's how many dollars I can save in taxes over my lifetime is what's really most important. So be careful there. But it comes down to planning. So many people think about the consequences of a Roth conversion. We love the idea of tax-free money down the road. We love that. But people get hyper-focused on the consequences of Roth conversions. So how much am I going to have to pay in taxes on that conversion? Obviously, if we're going to give up money early that we weren't planning on in the form of taxation because we did a Roth conversion, our account value is going to go down. People don't like the feeling of that. People don't like the feeling of getting pushed up into a higher tax bracket. So often people start utilizing what they think is common sense and actually makes sense, but not always does the math work out. I'm going to convert as much as I can up to my next tax bracket. Yeah, that's a strategy, but that might not be your best strategy. Start to focus on what the benefits are. It's very rare that I talk to anybody about Roth conversions and they've figured out what the benefits are. Isn't the whole reason why you're even thinking about a Roth conversion is to put you in the best possible position? Well, how do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Look, this thing's a puzzle, and you've got multiple pieces to the puzzle, and each piece of the puzzle is affecting other pieces. You've got to take your whole situation holistically, and you've got to do the calculations specifically, the Roth calculations, based on your whole holistic picture.
It's a great way to look at it, Sean. I want to remind you guys of our phone number, 559-847-0039. So the person that is writing this article, they're 80 years old, and obviously they waited until they're 80 to try and figure out this problem. My question is, has the train already left the station for this guy? Is there still hope? Is there still something he could do at this point? Or, in a perfect world, when would you have met with this person for the first time, Sean? What could you have done for them had they come to you sooner than 80 years old?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because again, that falls into what we were just talking about, common sense. So many people come to me and they say, I'm too old for Roth conversions. Well, I'm going to suggest you're not, and I'm going to give you a couple reasons why. First of all, until you can really understand what the benefit is, it doesn't make any sense to just come up with that. Maybe excuse or concept that we're too old because you don't really know. We are working right now with a lady. She's the neatest lady. Her name is Karen. She is 82 years old. Okay. And we typically would not be considering Roth conversions for the benefit of her lifetime.
Yeah.
But so important to recognize what happens with money from a tax perspective when you pass it on to the people that you care about. Mm-hmm. Look, if I accumulated this money, I don't care who's going to have it. I want as little to go to the government as possible, regardless of who has it and who's giving it to them. And so I'm going to take that in consideration. When you pass an IRA, pre-tax money, to the kids or to the heirs, they're going to be forced to take those dollars out over a 10-year period. They can typically take that out in whatever variation through the 10 years they want. They could take it all out in the first year. Through the years, they're typically not going to take it all out in 1 year because they're going to get crushed on taxes,
right,
reaching those higher tax brackets. So they're probably going to systematically take those dollars out through the 10 years. And keep in mind, and I'm generally speaking, but if you think about how old our kids are when we pass away, they're typically in their highest earning years, high 50s, early 60s, and they're making the highest salaries they have ever made.
Yeah.
Those salaries are taking up those lower tax brackets, and then our money that they're being forced to take out of the IRA, the inherited IRA, is falling into those higher tax brackets. And we're typically seeing 45%, maybe even 50% going to the government of those dollars that we accumulated. We didn't sign up for that. When you pass a Roth, yeah, they're still forced to take those dollars out over 10 years, but they can take those dollars out in the 10th year. They don't have to worry about the tax implications. So just think about that. They inherit your dollars, and they can leave those in the Roth for another 10 years to grow tax-free. That's very powerful. At 7% interest, it's going to double, and that's doubling it tax-free. So we're working with Karen right now, and she is 83 years old. And of course, we would not be strategizing to convert for her own lifetime, but we have her heirs in mind, and we have recognized that if we use her tax brackets right now, she's on Social Security, she doesn't have any other income, we can convert that IRA money right now so that when she passes it, her heirs are going to get that money completely tax-free and allow it to, again, grow for another 10 years in that Roth. So it's never about age. Keep in mind, what is the value of a Roth? The value of a Roth is tax-free growth. What do you need for growth? You need time and you need rate of return. So be careful of thinking about common sense. Start getting to the math, start and get to the calculations, and understand that you got to take your whole holistic picture into consideration when you're doing those calculations.
Absolutely. Okay, so if we've got someone listening, Sean, they've got a large 401k or an IRA, maybe they've got both, and they think this might eventually become a problem for them. What do they need to do? What steps should they be taking?
Yeah, I'm going to highly suggest that you get with somebody who knows what they're doing. You should give us a call, come in and have a discussion, and we're going to walk through that. We're going to walk through what the implications are of RMDs eventually getting into your financial world. We're going to walk through what the consequences of losing control of those tax brackets might be for you specifically. Give us a call and let's just walk through it. Team is standing by. We're going to walk through all these different elements, your income strategies, your tax strategies, your risks, your legacy desires, all of the lifestyle that you want to live and how your resources are going to help fund it. We're going to walk through all that stuff. So give us a call. Phone number is 559-847-0039. Our team is standing by, so give us a call right now.
Your Mason Street Retirement Blueprint is waiting, 559-847-0039. If you've done a great job saving for retirement, do not let taxes undo that hard work. A tax-efficient retirement strategy could really help you keep more of what you've earned in your pocket at the end of the day, and it's all going to start with your very own Mason Street Retirement Blueprint. So give us a call right now. Let's get a time on the calendar for you to meet with Sean. Let's see if you have some opportunities available before those RMDs start kicking in for you. 559-847-0039 or head online to masonstreetretirementinsights.com. Okay, Sean, so we've talked about people reaching retirement with a tax problem that maybe they didn't expect, but for some folks approaching retirement, their concern is not taxes. It's whether their career path might change before they're actually ready to retire. And that's becoming a really big conversation right now in this age of AI that I want to talk about. So let's think about it. I mean, before technology came along and took over certain jobs, somebody had to do them. So we used to have milk delivered by the milkman. He went door to door. We used to have some person light the street lamps by hand at night. We used to have telephone operators manually connecting calls. That one's actually really crazy for me to think about. But, eventually, Sean, technology came along. It made all of those jobs I just mentioned completely obsolete. And now artificial intelligence, it's raising a similar question for a lot of workers who are approaching retirement age. So Boston College's Center for Retirement Research did a new analysis that found that older workers in jobs with greater exposure to AI have become somewhat more likely to leave the workforce since the rise of AI tools like ChatGPT. So I bring this up because I wanted to ask you, if you have somebody who's in their late 50s or their early 60s and they're worried, Sean, that technology could change their career plans, could lead them to retire earlier than they wanted to, how are you helping them make sure that their retirement remains a choice rather than a surprise or something that they're forced into?
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's actually coming up quite a bit in discussions that we're having these days. Isn't it crazy to think about technology and how far it's come?
I mean, just thinking about those jobs I just mentioned.
Yeah.
You wanted to make a call. It connected you with an operator who then moved some plugs around a switchboard and connected you with who you want to talk to? Crazy.
For real. It's really unbelievable. But if you think about it, this has happened multiple times through history. The Industrial Revolution, everybody thought everybody was doomed. And then what happened? Mm-hmm. Everybody just figured it out. I am, I don't know, about 150 miles south of the Silicon Valley, mm-hmm. which is the heart of computer programming. And so I'm having these discussions quite a bit. People are worried that AI is going to kind of move them out of their career, out of the workplace. And so we're having these discussions. My kind of encouragement, my focus to help people that are concerned about this is to really start to figure out where you would be left. How would it affect you if you had to retire early? That's the key. Look, if it happens that you are having to make a career change, but you don't know, if you don't know how that's going to affect you financially, that's where the problem lies. We've got to know how that's going to affect you financially so that you can determine what your options are. You may be in a position to where you have to, because of your retirement desires, you might have to go figure out another career that is going to provide that same type of income that you're used to. That might be the case, but what if it's not? What if you don't actually have to have that same income? You maybe want to keep working, but you don't need that same income. Wow, that opens up the options significantly. And the way to do that is to have an actual financial plan done so that you can really understand where you are financially if you have to retire 2, 3, 5 years early.
Are you having clients come see you who they're concerned about technology and they're bringing that to your meeting? So maybe, their company is bringing or moving to a new software or bringing in a new type of tool and they're not interested in learning it. Are they bringing that concern to you? And then also I'm wondering if you're finding that people kind of underestimate their ability to adapt to these changes. They're moving us to cloud-based software. I can't learn it. I got to retire. Can I do it, Sean? In reality, it's probably not going to be that hard for them to adapt to, but they're just underestimating their ability.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about before, where this has happened before and people adapted, right? The other thing with technology is it's making learning easier also. So maybe we're not factoring that in. I agree with you. I think that people are more resilient sometimes than they give themselves credit for. And yes, we are having those discussions. I was just meeting with Jim a couple weeks ago. He's a computer programmer. He's going to retire. We've been working with him for 5 or 6 years. He's planning on retiring in about 3 years. And so we just started looking through his plan and started creating scenarios and figuring out, what if he has to retire earlier? He's going to be fine. There's no problem there, but he doesn't want to retire. He wants to keep working. He loves what he does. And so he's really been researching to try and figure out if AI keeps moving at the speed that it is, he's probably going to have to make some adjustments. So he's really been doing a lot of research to try and figure that out.
So would you say that people getting close to retirement, kind of like Jim, you were just talking about, he's planning to retire in 3 years. Should people approaching retirement be building more flexibility into that retirement timeline? What if something happens? What if Jim's company goes through a reorg next year? Should he be building that flexibility into his plan now so that he's ready to pivot should something like that happen?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's even beyond the situation that we're talking about, because we've been talking about and planning for those types of situations for years. What if somebody becomes disabled, right? There's a huge consequence to retirement when somebody has to move from working years to retirement years, even 2 or 3 years early. Something significant happens when we retire. We stop contributing to our accounts and we start using our accounts.
Yeah.
And that is a major, major effect on the financial plan. So definitely adding some flexibility in, yes, but you got to understand what those options are and you got to know what the effects are. And having a comprehensive financial plan done so that you can really understand what that looks like is going to be key.
Yeah, that shift from accumulation to distribution is a really big mindset shift as well that you have to be prepared for. So, Sean, if somebody is feeling anxious after hearing about these trends with AI and technology, what is something that they can do this week to regain a sense of control over their own retirement future?
Wow, what a great thing you said, gain a sense of control, right? That gaining a sense of control, that comes from a knowing. Through the 20 plus years that I've been working with families and building plans, there's just this feeling that comes over people when they know. When you know, hey, you might not love the picture, but when you know, there's a sense that you get that is unlike that feeling of uncertainty. I believe that you should have a comprehensive financial plan done. We'd love to work with you to do it. We want you to have our Mason Street retirement blueprint. We know how that's going to change the way that you feel and your outlook, and it's going to put you in a position to where you can start to understand your options and then determine which direction to go.
That number to do it, it's 559-847-0039. If you are in your late 50s or 60s, or maybe you're already retired, there's a lot that you cannot control, but what you can control is having a plan, and that is what Sean and his team at Mason Street Wealth Management are helping people do in their office every single day. So 559-847-0039 is what you need to dial if you've got $500,000 or more saved for retirement and you'd like to have a conversation about your retirement income and your savings and whether you are truly prepared for whatever may come next. 559-847-0039. Dial that number and we will get you scheduled for your very own Mason Street retirement blueprint directly with Sean. He will help you take a closer look at where you stand and what opportunities may be available to help you retire with confidence. So one more time, it's all going to start for you when you pick up the phone and dial 559-847-0039 or when you head online and visit us at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. We'll give you a few minutes now to make that call while we take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Lots more is still ahead here on Mason Street Retirement Insights. We'll be right back.
There are many lessons we learn as we're growing up. One was, don't touch the hot stove.
Ow.
Today, Uncle Sam is trying to keep that lesson alive with your 401k. Think about it. Don't touch your 401k before 59 and a half. You'll pay a penalty. Hot stove. Oof. Or don't touch your 401k. You'll have to pay taxes. You'll get burned.
Ouch.
You've been saving in this account your whole life. Why shouldn't you use it for retirement? So the financial industry can keep charging you fees or the government can roll up your tax bill? Come on. Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management believes in letting you enjoy your money. You worked for it, you saved it. Let's give you the confidence and permission to spend it. And there are plenty of options for you to explore. Go to masonstreetwealthmanagement.com to find out more. It's a no-obligation meeting to talk about planning and enjoying your retirement. Or call 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039. And let's give you some financial oven mitts for your 401k.
Hi, what'll it be?
I'll have a cone.
One vanilla cone coming right up.
Do you have any other flavors?
Not unless you want vanilla.
When choosing an advisor to build your retirement plan, you want more than just one option.
That's all you have? Vanilla?
Unfortunately, that's how most 401ks are designed. unlimited options. The vanilla ice cream of the financial world. Sean Mason of Mason Street Wealth Management can take that financial vanilla cone and turn it into your retirement banana split. Call 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com. The choice is yours. A world of options and retirement flavors, or...
Fine. You want something different?
Yes.
Okay. 2 scoops of vanilla.
You have found Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, and I am here with my buddy Sean Mason, president of Mason Street Wealth Management right here in Fresno, asking for his ideas on things that you can be working on as you get closer to your retirement. As you are listening today and you've got questions, want to remind you of our phone number. That's 559-847-0039. You can schedule some time to sit down with Sean for that introductory retirement planning assessment. 559-847-0039. Or we are also online. That website's masonstreetretirementinsights.com. There aren't many things that last more than 20 years these days, but apparently the TV show Grey's Anatomy is determined to prove that it can and it will. Not sure if you've ever watched this show. Sean, I used to be an avid watcher back in the day, but I think they lost me around season 8. They had a whole plane crash situation and I was out. But we've now actually made it through 22 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, and ABC, they intend to keep the party going. They've already renewed the show for season 23. They've got a spinoff in the works. And I was reading about this and thinking about the longevity of this show, Sean, from a retirement perspective. And it really shows us that sometimes doing the same thing over and over keeps working. And then on the other hand, sometimes it does not. So I'm wondering if you can talk to us about some things that you see retirees doing with their money that just are not as effective as they used to be. Can you speak to this, Sean?
Grey's Anatomy is still going.
It sure is.
It's
been going since I was in high school, I think.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard of Grey's Anatomy in so long, but that tells you my television watching experiences. Casey, this is a great concept to be talking about. I really like it. It's so easy for people to get kind of just comfortable and start feeling complacent in where they're at because they feel like things that have worked in the past will still continue to work more. They feel like they've got it. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes just isn't the case. And that happens from different perspectives. You know, there's changes that happen. Sometimes they're the economic environment. You know, if you think about the last decade or even maybe 2 decades, it used to be that we heard a 60-40 portfolio was the way to go, 60% stock and 40% bonds, and that has completely changed. If you're in a 60-40 type of a blend, or you're being recommended to be in that type of a blend, I think that it's probably not in your best interest at these times because the environment has changed with bonds. Our risk changes. Moving from working years to retirement years, that risk changes. Going from accumulation to distribution, that strategy is completely different. So what you're used to in working years is not going to be the same, and it's not going to work the same when you retire. Often, we just have the way we feel or personal changes. Thoughts about the way we see things could change. Good example there would be long-term care. So often when people first come in to meet with me, they think that their long-term care or their long-term health care strategy is going to be to rely on their kids. And as time goes on, maybe we have discussions about what that does, what caretaking does to somebody. Maybe they have started getting some experience in helping their own parents, and they start to recognize what that does, and they start to change how they think that they want to handle long-term care in the future and maybe not burden the kids so much. And so a lot of things are going to change. A lot of things have changed over the years, and a lot of things will continue to change in the future. I really am trying to press on people to kind of get real intentional about a few concepts I think it really helps. And one of those concepts is to try and really decide who you are and what you want out of retirement. Do you want to make it as great as it can possibly be? Or do you kind of just want to get by, feeling like that you think that it's all going to work out? Either way is fine. I mean, I'm not suggesting that one is right and one is wrong. I'm just suggesting to be intentional to make that decision. Your quality of life, you deserve that. You deserve to make that decision. Your family deserves for you to make that decision, and your quality of life is on the line. I'm really always trying to impress upon people to talk that out. Talk to your spouse. Ask how they feel about it. That's one of the least discussed concepts that there is when people come in here. And I will suggest too that not making that decision is making a decision to just get by. Procrastination is making that decision to kind of live that hope game and just feeling like it's all going to work out, but not really being sure.
Yeah.
But once you've talked that out, once you've kind of gone through that process of figuring out what you really want, I think it's time to commit to awareness. Commit to becoming aware. There's a lot of different elements that are going to come along with supporting that decision that you made to make it as great as you possibly can, and you want to know what that is. So many people, when they come into my office and they say, Sean, I don't know what I don't know, and I can't be having that in retirement. And so we've got to understand those different elements and things that we've got to be identifying. Some are going to be more important and some are going to be less important, but it's just so important to get that awareness. And a lot of people, they need to talk that out. They need to talk that out with somebody who knows what they're doing. And that all starts with a phone call. I encourage people, have a discussion with somebody. Come in and have a discussion with me, and we'll walk through what those different elements are and what those kind of things are that you need to be identifying. Recognizing that what we did through our working years is completely going to change when we go into our retirement years. The strategies, the priorities, it all changes significantly. I like to use the analogy, especially, when I'm teaching educational workshops at the colleges. I talk about, what is the goal of mountain climbing? And we know that the goal is to reach the top. But what's interesting about that is that 82% of all injuries and deaths happen on the way down. And so ask yourself, why is that? We put all of this time, we put all of this energy into strategizing, getting to the top and reaching to the goal. And we don't put any time and effort into figuring out how are we going to get down.
Yeah.
And if you think, and think about, Casey, think about the last, real steep hike you did. There's nothing the same about going up compared to coming down. It's all 100% different, right?
Right. It's a great point.
Yeah, the financial world is exactly the same. We put all of our energy to get to the top. In our financial world, most of us think about the top or the goal is retiring. I'll suggest that for most people, really, when you dig down, it's getting to that point to where you can decide if you need the paycheck or not. Whether you retire or not is not probably what's most important. It's getting to that point to where you get to if you decide you want to. And so understanding that getting to the top of that mountain, getting to the top of our financial mountain is going to be completely different than getting down. And we've got to put a lot of thought and strategy into getting there. Casey, you made a great point, and your question is, what's worked before versus what works now? People need help with discussing that, and again, I can't encourage you more. Talk that out with somebody that knows what they're doing. Give us a call and take advantage of the opportunity of coming in and having a discussion. There has been a lot of elements, a lot of things that's changed over the last decade or two, and they're going to continue to change. We talked about the current economic environment. We talked about how the use of bonds maybe are not in your best interest at this point, and there's alternatives. Understanding how an annuity can be an extraordinary bond replacement, serve the same purpose, and maybe get more value. than being in a bond. Legislative risk. A lot of people don't think about the legislative risk, legislative policy, how that can change through the years and then change your strategy. We just had a major legislative change with the big beautiful bill, right? Mm-hmm. It's a tax bill. And, I'm not getting political. Sometimes people want to get political when they talk about that bill. But look, I got to look at the facts. And for us, it's been a net difference maker in the amount of taxes that the families pay that we work for. And it's created a lot of opportunity to enhance Roth conversion strategies. So we're actually implementing more conversion strategies with more families. Maybe that before it wasn't going to be as beneficial, and now those benefits are just enhanced because of that change. A lot of times, our mindset is going to change. Often people will come into my office and they're all about the decision of, do I pay off the mortgage or do I keep it mortgaged? Bill and Jennifer just came in a few days ago, and it was a great conversation. Bill was really all about, keeping the mortgage, having that home mortgaged at 75%. He recognized the financial value, the math. He recognized the math. And Jennifer was, look, I just feel so much better about paying off the house. So the mindset can change through the years as well. But I'll tell you, Casey, what does not change, what never changes and what always stays the same is the value of the strong foundation of planning. Having a strong foundation in planning, understanding what your goal is. Look, how you reach the goal could change. Yes, with the environment, with legislative policy, with your mindset. But the goals don't change. What we're trying to accomplish, that lifestyle, what we're really trying to reach, typically isn't going to change.
Let me ask you this, Sean, because you just gave us, a little bit of an example with that couple that you've worked with. But is there a situation recently where you've helped somebody, or maybe you've helped a couple, really modernize their retirement plan and it really made a meaningful difference for them heading into retirement?
Yeah, actually, there's several. Let's see, Harry and Jane. They are just a really neat couple. They come to mind. They accidentally came across the radio show months ago.
Okay.
And they just started listening to it. There was some, there was some similar concepts being discussed in that show that we're discussing right now.
Okay.
And so that caught their attention. They listened for a few more weeks. They heard a lot of ideas and concepts that made a lot of sense. And so they came in, but, they thought they had it all figured out. Jane, she was used to paying the bills. Harry handled the investments. They had watched and helped their parents going through retirement. Of course, their parents had a pension, and they knew that was a different situation for them. But they kind of agreed that having a plan done would be beneficial. And so then going through that process, going through our comprehensive planning process, they gained a lot of insight in different things that they didn't realize. Some things that they were able to really improve, some of those strategies, some of those things that they had felt like they had already got it figured out. They had it figured out, but there was some improvements made there. There were many ideas or many things that they hadn't thought of. Mm-hmm. And when we started to test, what could happen in the future? What are some hurdles? What are some potholes that could happen in the future that might derail the whole plan, might derail their retirement lifestyle? We identified some of those things and we implemented some strategies to mitigate those consequences. We've been working together now, over 6 months. We're now working with their kids, which I take that as a great honor, but also we're working with several of their friends and coworkers. And that conversation all started with a phone call. They heard us on the radio and they picked up the phone. A lot of times, Casey, people are trying to decide, and I get this a lot when people come into the workshops that I teach. Mm-hmm. Often they're really trying to determine whether they should be doing this on their own or if they should be kind of bringing in professional consultation. I am all about people doing it on their own. if they have the characteristics to do it, and there's a lot to that, and you got to walk through that and decide on your own if that's the case. That's a family decision. I always want to make sure that we recognize that, yeah, it's going to affect our lifestyle. It's going to affect our quality of life, but it's also going to affect our family's quality of life, our spouse, our kids. And so, a lot of times people just need to be able to talk that out. Sometimes that's with just family members. Oftentimes, it's not a bad idea to just get with a financial consultant to walk through that discussion as well.
So if someone's listening to this conversation, Sean, and they're thinking, maybe my retirement plan is built on some of these outdated rules and concepts, or maybe they've been trying to DIY their retirement plan themselves and they're kind of double thinking now, like, they're second guessing, can I really do this on my own? What should those people be doing? What action should they be taking this week to, get to a better place when it comes to their retirement planning?
That's a really good one. I'm always suggesting that people get real with themselves. It's all about discipline, having the discipline to get the information that you should have. Know what you need to know. Have the discipline to keep up because it's changing constantly. And then ultimately, Casey, it's about having the discipline to not react emotionally. That's the biggest problem in this thing. Reacting emotionally can devastate retirement plans. If you're not sure about what your situation is, if you're not sure, if it's not your area of expertise, I urge you to get counsel on your individual situation. Look, it could mean the difference between thousands of dollars in spending throughout your lifetime and then into legacy. I invite you to give our office a call. We'll find a good time for you to come in or meet by Zoom. It's just a great opportunity for you to talk through your situation. We might have some recommendations you can use on your own, and then we can determine if there's something we can do to help put you in a better position. So give us a call right now. Our team is standing by, 559-847-0039. And for our first 5 callers, we're going to provide you with your own individual comprehensive planning assessment, estate planning, tax strategies, investment allocations, all these elements that you need to be thinking about to make your retirement lifestyle the best it can be.
559-847-0039. Take the few minutes to get a second opinion. Secure your spot for your own introductory retirement planning assessment with Sean, and let's make sure that your strategy is keeping up with your goals. 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. Sean, I think the conversation that we just had makes an important point that a lot of those old retirement rules worked in a different era, but today's retirees are playing a completely different game. And when people realize that that old playbook may not work the way that it used to, I feel like that can lead to some emotional decisions. And one of the biggest ones right now is feeling like you're missing out when the market is going up. And if the market feels confusing to you right now, please know that you're not alone. And we've got investment manager Charles Bobrinskoy telling CNBC that one emotion seems to be driving a lot of investors right now. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, at any given time, there are times in which people are overly greedy or overly fearful. And I think right now it's absolutely the case that we're in overly greedy mode. There is FOMO all over this market. And the indicators that people talk about, whether it's your cab driver asking you about his latest AI wins, or it's one of your kids telling you you got to get with it and invest more in technology, all of these things tend to be signs of euphoria, and it's never good to be buying when everybody's buying.
Now, Sean, nobody wants to feel like they're sitting on the sidelines. So I'm wondering how you help people in retirement or close to retirement benefit from the market without letting that FOMO, that fear of missing out, drive their decisions. What's your approach?
Yeah, I agree. It's a big thing right now, and it's going both ways. I'm telling you, people are having that fear of missing out. They're making trades. They're allocating in ways that seems like they're chasing and hoping that it's going to work out. And then a lot of people, they're just worried. They're scared because the price of everything is so high, and they just feel like they know that there's going to be some type of a major correction, and that's just not the way to do it. I think it's essential that you have that strong foundational investment plan. You've got to understand what your goals are, and you've got to have the discipline to stick with that plan. And Casey, to your question, that's what we do. We help people understand what their goal is. A lot of times that's the missing piece. They got to understand what their goal is. They get caught up in thinking that growth is what they're looking for, or they just can't position themselves to lose any money. And that's not necessarily the goal. The goals are different. I think a lot of times it just starts with sitting down with somebody, going through a discussion of what you really want your lifestyle to be like. Investments support strategies and a plan. And when you have that foundational investment plan, now you can figure out what investments you should be using to support the strategies in that plan. Dollars get earmarked based on what you're trying to accomplish them and when you're going to use them. Some dollars might be used in the next 2 years for income. Some of those dollars you might need to earmark with strategy that's going to help you with healthcare funding in the future. A lot of times you want to make sure that you leave some type of a legacy for a cause or the kids. All of those strategies, all those goals are going to have different investment strategies. And that's not to say that if you are creating a investment plan and you're dedicated to earmarking those dollars for those specific goals, that is not to say that you can't have your own small account on the side that you are managing yourself. Dan and Carol were just in 2 days ago for a review, and they're a lot of fun. But Dan had mentioned how, he has his side account. He's got $50,000 in a little side account. Those dollars aren't going to affect their lifestyle. It's not going to affect their quality of life. But he was kind of bragging about how that account is up 18%. And Carol was quick to chime in and remind us all that account the same time this year was down over 20%. It's not to say that you can't have that on the side if you just love it, but the real money, the money that you're going to use for quality of life and lifestyle, it requires strategic goals. Taxes are going to be a factor in the investment design. You think of Roth conversions during conversion strategies. During the conversion strategy, there's going to be a investment strategy that goes along with it. Then for those Roth dollars, the long-term, the dollars in that Roth that are going to be used long-term are going to have one investment strategy that's going to be different from some of those Roth dollars that you might be blending in for income right now. Your taxable accounts versus your deferred tax accounts, those strategies, those investment strategies are going to be different. It's always about the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. It's never about a single stock or a single investment opportunity that you're trying to chase the returns. Keep in mind that each piece of the puzzle is affecting other pieces of the puzzle. It deserves discussion. A lot of times people are going to put themselves in a better position if they just had that discussion with somebody who knows what they're doing. Tom and Maureen came in just a few weeks ago. They had heard us on the radio. They came in for a financial planning assessment. Maureen was worried about running out of money, and Tom just felt like he knew what he was doing. He felt like he could do it himself because he thought that there was a huge value in saving some fees. Mm-hmm. And as we went through that discussion and talked about the intricacies, they decided on working together with us to build a plan. Originally, it was just to build a plan. We work with people in two different capacities. Some people, we just be the architect and we build the blueprint for them. And others, we end up managing together. And for Tom and Maureen, after going through that process, Tom had decided earlier that he felt like he could do it himself, but actually going through that process, we actually ended up working together, and we're now managing the money, managing the portfolios, and implementing the strategies in that plan. And that all started with a phone call. You know, they heard us on the radio, they picked up the phone, they gave us a call, and they scheduled a meeting. And that all changed the way that they think and feel and how they're actually going to live now their lives, their retirement. I just encourage our listeners, I encourage you, give us a call. Our team is standing by. Set up a convenient time to come into the office, have a discussion. We can have that discussion by Zoom, whatever is most convenient.
559-847-0039. That's the number to dial if you'd like a second opinion on your portfolio, your income strategy, or your overall retirement game plan. Sean's ready to help, and this is a great time to have that conversation. So if you have $500,000 or more saved for retirement, all you have to do to get started is pick up the phone. Give us a call right now, 559-847-0039. We've got Mason Street teammates standing by. They will help you find that next convenient time on the calendar to meet directly with Sean. 559-847-0039, or find us online at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. And that's going to do it for us this week here on the show. But Sean and I will be back next week, same time, same place, with more retirement insight for Fresno. But until then, Sean, handing it back over to you. Any final thoughts today?
Oh, it's always so much fun hanging out with you, Casey, and I love being with the community. It's going to be over 100 degrees this weekend, and I like to remind people we live in an extraordinary area. We've got all kinds of lakes. I think sometimes we forget and we get stuck in the house with the air condition, but we got so much around us. Get out and go for a hike, but keep coming back here. We care so much about your success. We want you to be successful in retirement. We're going to keep bringing you information to help move you forward and get yourself in the best possible position. So come back next week, and we'll see you then.
Mason Street Wealth Management, MSWM, is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by MSWM on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Motivate Investments. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. Investment advisory services are offered through Motivate Investments, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. The information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities, offered through Sean A. Mason, California, insurance license number 0B54860. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Motivate Investments. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. MSWM is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if MSWM is licensed in your state, please call 559-892-0002.
Okay, single room with a queen-size bed, non-smoking, $139.50.
The ad said $99 a night.
That's before the fees.
Fees?
Yeah, the service fee, internet fee, parking fee, ice bucket fee. You might use the luggage cart.
Unexpected fees. We see them all the time. Cell phone bill, cable bill, your internet provider. Have you purchased a car lately? And your retirement accounts. Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management can show you how to identify these fees and design a plan to reduce them. It's all a part of their Portfolio X-Ray with a deep dive into your 401k and other holdings.
Uh-oh, forgot the free breakfast fee. Oh, and the dome over the pool fee.
More of your money can go toward your retirement, not to some suit on Wall Street. Call the team at Mason Street Wealth Management today for your complimentary Portfolio X-Ray. 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com.
There was a time when the answer was
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
the question How much is a lot of money? Think about this. During the 80s, there were about 500,000 millionaires in the U.S. Today, there are over 18.6 million. There are millions of millionaires. The point is this. If you've saved $1 million for retirement, congratulations. But even if you haven't, that's your fortune. Whether you carry that label of middle-class millionaire or not, Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management can show you how to take those hard-earned dollars and create years of retirement happiness. When you do the math on your retirement, it's more about the number you get per month than the amount you've saved. Call Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management for your complimentary retirement review. 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com. Want to retire like a millionaire? Call Mason Street Wealth Management today.